Welcome to an introduction to the SWIFT feature, Fully Integrated Organizational Structure. I'm Dan.
And I'm Allison. As you'll recall, this domain is one of 5 evidence-based concepts that, when implemented together, transforms teaching and learning for the success of all students. Integrated Educational Framework has 2 features: fully integrated organizational structure and strong and positive school culture. Today, we are exploring fully integrated organizational structure.
Fully integrated organizational structure is about 3 big ideas. First, a fully integrated organizational structure is about all students participating in the general education curriculum, instruction, and activities with their grade level peers. Second, it's about promoting collaborative instructional strategies and opportunities for peers to learn with and from each other. Third, it's about ensuring we provide service based on needs identified through data and not dependent on labels or a one-size-fits-all approach.
Research in this area provides strong evidence that student outcomes are enhanced when students with disabilities are being fully included in the general education curriculum with their grade level peers. It is associated with improved math achievement, improved reading achievement, and improved adaptive behavior.
How are we going to create a fully integrated organizational structure? Let's unpack these 4 practices that are recommended for us to get started. Practice number 1, identify any students who do not have a grade-level classroom as their primary placement. Practice 2, use a multi-tiered system of support to provide services based on need rather than on disability label. Practice 3, set expectations for collaborative instruction among peers. And practice 4, use paraeducators to support inclusive education.
For practice 1, it's important that we identify any students who do not have a grade level classroom as their primary educational environment, such as students with IEPs or students attending an alternative school or center-based program. An example of this might be students who are English language learners who attend a center-based program. First, we have to identify students who would otherwise attend the neighborhood school or students who spend their day in a classroom other than the general education classroom. Then, we have to identify any barriers that currently exist to serving these students in their home school or grade level classroom. Recognize that not all barriers are physical in nature. In fact, a barrier may have to do with staff-specific knowledge or training that is unique for the student who attends an alternate setting. Let's spend some time discussing. Talk about what barriers exist at your school to serving all students in the school or in the general education setting. Now that we've identified some of those barriers, let's identify any resources that would be needed to have the capacity to serve all students in their grade level classrooms. When processing the identification of resources that are necessary, stay focused on what it would take to make it possible to ensure that the school can serve all students with their classmates and can leverage resources to make it happen in that student's neighborhood school. Then, it's important that we match existing resources with the student needs to begin building the capacity to serve all students in their grade level classrooms. Other questions to think about are, how does our school use data to match resources to student needs? How can our school leverage its own, its district, or even state resources to give access to the general curriculum for all students? For example, one school had a previous practice of scheduling their reading specialist to visit student groups at each grade level for 45 minutes. They rethought their approach and used their data to reallocate and prioritize time to fit student needs. Because this process was led by a representative group in the school, they had a strong understanding of the rationale and considerations of the overall master schedule, as well as student needs. Spend some time brainstorming about how you can shift currently available resources to help serve all students in the classroom with their peers.
Practice number 2, provide services based on need rather than by disability label. Change language used in the building to reflect that additional supports are provided based on need. Traditionally, schools use a variety of programs and supports that are aligned with identified student need. One unintentional outcome of this approach is that as sometimes educators start using the description of the service as a way to describe the student. Strategies to explore related to this practice include examining the language used in the school, descriptors in the building, signage, or how professional learning is organized. One example of this practice has to do with the common language used by staff in reference to students. Take a student named Tyrone. Does the staff use person-first language, such as Tyrone is a student receiving additional supports in reading comprehension? Or do they refer to Tyrone as a Tier 2 student or an IEP student? Change personnel titles in building signage to reflect that special educators support all students in any location. Do teachers recognize and understand that in their school, they teach students, all students, and their teaching can occur anywhere in the school facility? Provide professional learning opportunities together at the same time. To help facilitate inclusive education, it's important that general and specialized educators have opportunities to learn, plan, and work together. Adopt a policy in support of non-categorical language and service delivery. When making changes to creating fully integrated organizational structures, such as changing language and titles, make sure policy is adopted to reflect the new way of thinking. This helps ensure the changes are sustained over time as leadership and personnel changes occur.
Practice 3. Set expectations for collaborative instruction among peers. This is an exciting practice when we think about the strengthened outcomes for students as 21st century learners. As we think about and then implement strategies to engage students in different ways, to work collaboratively with their peers, we are strengthening their skills and traits that will be as long-lasting as their literacy and other content-based skills. Collaborative instruction among peers is a great way to engage all students. To utilize this practice, teachers should be provided professional learning opportunities on how to engage students to work collaboratively with their peers. Share some examples of how peers collaborate and learn from each other in your classrooms. Collaborative instruction among peers can be thought of in a variety of ways. Think about peer-assisted learning to determine how to capitalize on peers as natural supports. Explore how to create opportunities for peers to learn with and from each other. Think overall how to create accountable learning environments among peers. Some SWIP partner schools decided to use math talks across all grade levels. These math talks are an excellent example of not only how students strengthen their reasoning skills, but how they learn to ask questions, agree, and disagree with each other, which builds strong discourse at an early age.
Practice number 4. Use paraeducators to support inclusive education. Known by different titles such as paras, instructional assistants, educational aides, this practice prompts us to look for strategies for how to include these staff in professional learning and team processes and how to intentionally involve them in support for any student in the classroom or in the school environment. What are the roles of paraeducators at your school? Are paraeducators used to support inclusive practices? When utilizing paraeducators in general education classrooms, it's important to include them in professional learning and team processes that general and specialized educators attend. Think about how paraeducators can be involved in the team processes where planning and reflection occurs between general and specialized educators. For example, one school has carved out time every morning to ensure that general educators and paraeducators have the opportunity to share important information about events from the day before, go over plans for the next day, and talk through questions and ideas. When thinking about paraeducators in a fully integrated organizational structure, do we expect that they are not assigned to one particular student and that all students in the school view them as an adult who can be accessed for support? Provide paraeducators professional learning on how they can support students in inclusive settings, such as leading small groups or collecting progress monitoring data.
We just covered 4 practices that are good launching points for addressing a fully integrated organizational structure. Let's debrief as we think about our own district or building. Why is creating a fully integrated organizational structure important? Discuss what strengths are already in place, discuss opportunities for growth, and then set goals and next steps.